Jumping Jesus on a pogo stick, it's time for full disclosure.
Full disclosure, news and commentary number 76, 76, 76, 76, 76. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. I got things kind of repositioned with the laptop and all of that, so this is kind of an old school shot. This is how I used to do it back in the first 30 or 40 episodes or so, or it's 76. Madness. Before I forget, Tipping Point, which is going to be tomorrow, we're going to have Ryan Staples. Yeah, that one. And we're going to have Chip Day. I'm very excited to talk to. And this is number 76. Of course, without the patrons, I would be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. If you are one of the patrons, then you've heard some pretty great videos in the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to keep them coming. One dedicated to 9/11 and how 9/11 affected what would become Platinum Championship Wrestling, actually. Yeah. And then another one on a thing that happened back in the day in Ring of Honor and sort of the personalities involved with that one. Thank you, patrons Dee and Dan and Joseph Black and Derek and Brett, Diana and Michael, Larry, not that one, but the other one, Rob Rod, Brian, and of course the big three, Eric the World Walker, Viral Pro Wrestling, and the OG Myron. Great stuff. So our commentary is on, I've been promising it for a while, on his request actually, which is what does Gary Lamb need to do to open things up to help Southern Honor? Of course, without Gary Lamb, there would be no Southern Honor, and they certainly wouldn't have the crowds that they have now. The last 2 years for them would not have gone as well. No doubt about it. But if they want to take the next level, this is just my opinion on how Gary Lamb needs to change. Now, people, that might already make people bristle hearing me say that, but fuck you. It's full disclosure. Would you really expect me to say anything less? I would hope. Oh, look at that shit. I would hope not. Yay for finally having a haircut. Yay. We're all excited. Pro South continues to do their shows. I'm not getting attendance numbers, but for them that's really a secondary thing. But it seems like this show got a little more on track, which is great. They had to take that week off, but it seems like they've come back swinging and doing really great. TWE drawing 85. Really great to see Scott Hensley. Oh, shit, that reminds me of something. Scott Hensley did a report. I always love reading Scott Hensley's reports, and if he says this is the best show that they've ever done or done in recent memory, I am inclined to believe it. That reminds me, there's somebody who reached out to me and asked me to come up with a template of writing show reports because they want to start writing them on the regular, which I think is awesome. And I would encourage anybody who wants to write show reports to do that as well. Maybe I will put up that template in some way, shape, or form, but I do need to get that done for them at some point. But as you can tell, if you're a regular follower and a subscriber to this channel, I've been super busy because ever since I got the video game capture software, my kids are very ambitious, and so one of them's playing one game, the other one's playing another game. I'm doing The Walking Dead, so I'm practicing and getting that stuff out, and it takes a lot of time, but so it goes. Southern Violence and Wrestling drew 227 in the Rizane, which you cannot front on those numbers. Super impressive. And then an inquiry went up of shouldn't they be a contender for promotion of the year? I would say most definitely. But people, again, are of the notion that it's me, Larry, and whoever who determine that. We do not. Lest we forget, if there's a promotion that truly deserves that consideration, then for goodness sakes, when we call for nominations, then nominate them. Are there going to be an awards? We haven't made a decision on that yet. We haven't discussed it even since we've discussed it on that tipping point. But if, let me get my, where's my magic 8-ball? That's what happens when people clean. I can't find anything. But I would say signs point to yes. I would say that signs point to yes, especially if you keep having things like this. But Southern Violence and Wrestling, they've had nothing but shows in the 200s. They've been running steadily. The talent on their show improves, though I would say that it's still spurious in a lot of ways, my opinion. But, you know, Austin Towers certainly was singing their praises. By the way, how good has it been to see him getting out and about more and getting the right kind of attention? It's really great. And other people as well. And he gets, look, if I'm critiquing you, it's because I give a fuck about you. If I don't, fuck. Here we are in our rant shit. That's what I do. Rant bell. If I fucking bother saying some shit about you, chances are in some way, shape, or form I care. Now, it might be because I care for you to go the fuck away, but chances are, especially if you're a wrestler that I am critiquing, it is because I give a fuck and I see something in you. And sometimes me saying shit on here is the quickest way to get to people. Now, you can be mad about it, but trust me, it's better if I talk about you than I don't talk about you. You want me to cite numerous fucking examples of that over the years? I'm happy to do it, but I'm sure you don't want that. So, am I happy for Austin Towers? Abso-fucking-lutely. Am I happy for guys like Trevor Aeon? Sure. But if that chip on their shoulder, which helps them get ahead, is important. But if the impression is, well, now people are just discovering how great I was all along, I'm just going to say this. Yes, it's true that booking and things like that can keep you down. Undeniably true. But I think just as true is if you're fucking great, it comes out inevitably. Maybe that's a little bit of magical thinking, but I am of that mind. It's why I don't get my fucking panties all in a twist and excitement about whether Rusev goes here, there, or anywhere. Because I am of the mind that if you're truly, truly, truly great, it would come out no matter where you were wrestling. Now, sometimes a change of scenery does people good. And I think it's safe to say that AEW in some ways is comparable to the WWE. And so it's a great move for him. But forgive me if I just don't always go under the excuse of, well, but they were booked shitty. Well, but they were blah. And that's why they just can't get ahead no matter what. Did getting saddled with the shittiest fucking gimmick in recent memory stop the New Day? No, it did not. Is being a guy that literally was treated differently than everybody else, unfairly in many ways, stop Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson? No, it did not. Now, you may say, well, those are exceptions, and in some cases, blah, blah, blah. I am, of course. Did they fuck up booking Bayley when she got out of NXT and onto the main roster? Did they somehow fuck her up? Yes. And guess what? Made it work. Now, wrestling is about opportunities and things aren't always fair, etc., etc., etc. But if you're a wrestler that is still of the mind that I'm not getting what I deserve, when you're in one of the only 2 states that can run shows and have one step to getting to one of the big leagues, fuck you. Fuck you. It's there for you. If that means getting off of the shit show that you're doing and getting onto a better show, then fucking do it. And there are shows, by the way, that will showcase you with good booking. Hop your happy ass into a car and get to fucking Alabama to Pro South if what you want is to be seen. Right? Or make inquiries or go out of your way or fucking be exceptional. That's how you fucking get ahead. And if I bother to mention your stupid ass, just say thank you. WrestleMerica drew 200, as did Larietto, but I wanted to talk about Larietto a little more. But WrestleMerica 200, I liked what Rob said in his report. Rob Rod, he said, felt like 300. I think of the way they have it laid out. And the indoor shows, I think it's a different vibe. Outdoor shows, it's a very different vibe. When you've got a spread out 200, it doesn't seem like that many, like Larietto, right? But when you've got an inside show, it's spread out 200 actually feels like more because of the ambient noise and whatever the reasoning is. But I thought that was a really interesting assessment. Now that more people are doing shows, I feel like I can do a top 10. Maybe I will do that top 10 wrestlers thing soon. Renegade, although the show happened before the last full disclosure, the report didn't come out until afterwards, so I wasn't able to note them, but I wanted to note them here because they drew a crowd of 78, and you're saying, well, fuck, they used to draw on average 30, and then for bigger shows, 60, 70, 80, 90. Now for bigger shows, they're drawing close to 200, and their regular crowd is 70 or over. I think that deserves pointing out. I think that's really great. And I think the people who are doing stuff with that promotion deserve a shout out, so I'm going to give it to them. Larietto. Dublin is a place that they're planning on running once a month. Well, they got off to a good fucking start, didn't they? They drew 200. And Larry got in trouble for his line about how Dublin is a 50% black population, but there weren't many black faces there. Why is he saying that? Is he saying Larietto's doing a shit job? No. He's indicating that there is a market there that they haven't tapped yet, which they can, especially if they're going to run a show there every month. Larry is here to help, dipshits, if you haven't fucking noticed yet. And the fact that they took that line out, but when it was reprinted somewhere else, I won't say where, tells you how sensitive people are. Larry's just trying to help you. And by the way, when I talked to him about it, the knowledge that he had about Dublin and the fact that it was the first place where Martin Luther King Jr. ever cut a speech at age 14. See, I listened to you, Larry, and I remember. And that kind of shit tells you Larry knows his shit. And we're very lucky to have him. I know I say this a lot, folks. And as much as some people try to claim other places have this kind of scene that Georgia's got, fuck you. No, they don't. No, they don't. I keep in contact with other people that do what I do and do what Georgia Wrestling History does and shit like that. And guess what? None of them do it like that. None of them do it like that. None of them have this show reports coming in like this. They don't. So, fuck you. Fuck you. Rant over. We're just about ready to go to the commentary already. What do I got coming up? Obviously, I'll have the Raw report out tonight or tomorrow morning. And then we got a big dark show, which hopefully they're going to rebound from last week's, which I did not think was a very effective show. This one seems like it's going to be much more so. By the way, do you know the states that have coverage about AEW Dark, especially emphasizing the local talent and the talent that they know that are on those shows? Nobody does that. Except for us. Nobody. Then I'm going to cover AEW Dynamite. Yay. SmackDown's reaching the point where I feel like I might need to cover that instead of Raw. I can't cover both, folks. Fuck it, I can't. I just got too much shit to do, and I just frankly don't like watching wrestling all that much to watch that much fucking stuff. But yeah, I'm going to cover those three shows in particular. And then I also have something that's wrestling related that hopefully I can get finished up tomorrow and then put out, which I think is going to be big. I'm laughing because it's so fucking ridiculous. I can't wait for you to see it. Now I'm going to hit pause so I can go to the bathroom and come back and concentrate on the commentary, which deserves the concentration. Hey, that was cool. All right. I want to kind of settle in. So I'm just going to talk. I do have a couple of notes here, mostly to help me remind me to wrap up because you know how I can get. So off the top, I consider Gary Lamb a friend. So full disclosure, if whenever I do something similar to this, there's the people that will say that I'm too harsh, and then there's the people that I said that I've gone too easy, no matter what the fuck I say. So I understand that. So let me put stuff out in the front. Gary Lamb, I consider a friend. I also like him. I like him as a person. And I'm so thankful that he is on the Georgia wrestling scene. Because frankly, I find most of the promoters to be, at best, boring. And at worst, undeserving of the position they see so arrogantly to have and put themselves in. I will also say that any number of these things that I'm saying about Gary could apply, many or most of the things I'm going to say could apply to any number of promoters or people who are considered shot callers in some way, shape, or form in Georgia. That's irrelevant to me. I'm not doing this so people can get into this game of what about. Fuck whataboutism. Save it for your political horseshit. I will also acknowledge that there's things that I'm probably, I'm not going to say probably. That there are possibly things that I have misconstrued, or there are possibly things that I am incorrect about. Gary Lamb nor anybody else should not take that, though, as sort of a blanket way to excuse or to get out of anything that I'm saying. Why am I saying these things? In order to foster an understanding and at least open up a discussion, because I think things should be a lot better than they are. And Gary Lamb is one of the few people that, through simply changing how he does things in a both a long-term way and a short-term way, can make things a lot better for himself, for Southern Honor, for Dylan, and others who help out with Southern Honor. Here's the other things that I like right off the rip. I like the fact that Southern Honor cares about what it is doing, and it seems to maximize the resources. And they are extensive resources, but they maximize those resources that they've been given. We have seen other promotions that have had access to this kind of resource, maybe even more so. My oft-cited Rampage Pro Wrestling, right? They had a TV show locally. They had a much bigger budget than most other shows. They had a facility that was theirs, and so they could run shows as frequently or infrequently as they wanted to. And they tended to pay more, as Southern Honor tends to pay more than most of the promotions. I'm not going to go into specific numbers. Fuck, you can find that shit out yourself. Just take my goddamn word for it. But Southern Honor, I think in many ways, does things better than Rampage did, especially at the end of Rampage. I think during COVID, I think it was very smart for them to have that show hosted by Brandon and the other guy. So bad that I don't remember the other guy's name. I actually watch those things, and I like them. Gary, for the most part, seems like he keeps out of the booking, which I think is very smart. And I think he allows Dylan room to move. That's one thing I will say for the promoters in Georgia that I think is very good and maybe is the best that it's ever been, in that they are giving their bookers, or themselves if they are the bookers, room to work and room to try things. Yeah. And I think that's been to everybody's benefit. I think we can see that at Pro South. I think we can see that at Southern Fried. We can see that certainly at Southern Honor. I think we can see that as they've gone through different booking shifts and changes at a place like Anarchy. We can see how things have gotten better and better and better, and the people throwing in ideas are doing a great job. I think we can see that at any number of promotions, even a place like WrestleMerica. Often I look at, because all I can do is read the reports, right, and talk to the people who went to the shows. But when I look at the last WrestleMerica show, for example, I think to myself, the right people win and the right people lose, and they seem to put themselves in a position to have matches continuously. It's pretty great. And keep in mind that though we are of the mind that now we're getting back to normal and more and more people are running shows, there are promotions that have dropped off the face of the earth that once seemed like they were going to be very prominent and had things going on. Steve, what are you fucking talking about? Where the fuck is Pro Wrestling Circuit? They had sponsors lined up. They had their shows lined up as far as booking that building all the way to the end of the year. I understand that COVID happened, but I've certainly gotten no indication that Pro Wrestling Circuit is ever going to run a show again. And there's a number of reasons for that. And again, this is just me assuming, and this is just me making inquiries. But I don't think Tommy Pitts has done them favors, right? And if you're a promoter or somebody who runs things that put yourself and your promotion in a position where people don't want to work for you, or it makes it harder to get people, that's inhibiting your potential growth. I can understand that. The way I ran PCW and the person, especially back then that I was, and how outspoken I was about things, probably hurt us. Once I left Georgia and I had the column, full disclosure, which ruffled a lot of feathers. That made it harder for people like Shane Mackey and Matt Hankins to book talent, because people would get mad and alienated about shit for whatever fucking reason. Right? So that's a case where I hurt PCW, which, P.S., I really care about PCW and always have. All right. So Gary Lamb and Southern Honor. Of course, these are things that they would not say about themselves. It doesn't behoove them to critique themselves, but I'm going to critique them as a way of getting around to this thing of Gary Lamb and the way that he is, his public persona. I think while it has helped Southern Honor get to where they are, it is also damning them with faint praise, and it is going to prevent them from growing any more than they can if things are not changed and roles are not modified. Some people would deem that selling out, and I would deem it stupid to be closed off to the notion that people can grow and improve. And the same people that would likely say something like, well, you got to be real and you got to be, are fucking unsuccessful dipshit motherfuckers, especially in the pro wrestling business. With that said, Southern Honor is a mercenary show. Most shows now are mercenary shows. True. But Southern Honor should never forget about the fact that it is a mercenary show. What is a mercenary show? A mercenary show is one that doesn't have a core. It's not based around a school. It doesn't primarily book a group of wrestlers from a school. So their entire reason for existing is to just put on the show and make money. Is there anything wrong with that? No. But it also means it is what it is. There was a marked difference between, at the time, these were the three biggest, most prominent promotions in Georgia: Platinum Championship Wrestling, Anarchy Wrestling, and Rampage. Rampage was number one. And it was similar to Southern Honor in many ways. They got the biggest average crowds by far. They paid the most. But a funny thing happens when success isn't had eventually, and interpret that any way that you want. Mercenary shows are the first ones where the boys will look for a way out, because they don't, because mercenary shows offer two things: the pay that you get and the ancillary benefit of being on a show that gets a lot of attention. When you're on a show that gets a lot of attention, it's fun. It's fun to work that show. And it's beneficial potentially to work that show because of exposure. Lots of people like to make fun of this idea of wrestling promotions as exposure, but it's a very real thing. Now, there are promotions that care about that, taking that exposure and getting you booked in other places, like Action. And there's places that care about that a little less, like Southern Honor. Regardless, the idea of you're wrestling for a promotion that gets more attention matters. It is a form of currency. It is something that is valuable to many, if not all, of the wrestlers. Makes sense? And by the way, Georgia wrestling history and Larry and Rob Rod and the Tapped Out guys and me providing you attention, cyber ink spilled for your show reports, time spent on our podcasts talking about you, or vlogs. All of that matters. And if you don't think it matters, you're fucking crazy. Whenever I talk about anything, especially on full disclosure, tonight and tomorrow morning, I am going to get a number of messages from a number of different people with all different kinds of takes. If I mention them in a positive way, I will generally get a thing saying, thank you for mentioning me. If I say something in a negative way, or whatever strong position I take, there's going to be people who agree and disagree, because they realize that who watches Full Disclosure? For the most part, it's fucking industry wrestling people in Georgia. And it's the lifeline. And Georgia wrestling history is much the same way. That's who's reading those show reports for the most part. But that includes other promoters, other bookers. When you follow the line, right? Austin Towers, I critique him. He kind of goes on this bitch and moan campaign publicly on Facebook. But some people sort of regulate him, or at least tell him, like, dude, he's not wrong. Well, where can I do this? Where can I do that? And then shining more of a light on the stuff he was doing at Pro South. Does that lead to other bookings? Of course it did. Of course it did. All this shit works in lockstep. And Gary Lamb, this is a big positive in his direction. He has always acknowledged that it's important to know the role that Georgia wrestling history plays, and people who are giving him publicity. He is a promoter first, unlike anybody else in the entire state, Georgia wrestling. And that's great. But they are a mercenary show. And it's Gary's job to constantly promote and to constantly pump them up. The problem is the way that he's been pumping them up now seems like it is as much a detriment as a positive. And this is a lot of what I'm going to go into now. Right? Never is an accolade for... Never is Gary trumpeting his own horn for Southern Honor without knocking others down. It's his instinct. It's his go-to. And frankly, it has gotten to the point where it doesn't help Southern Honor to do so. Except in Gary's mind, where he believes, I need to have an enemy and I need to continually snipe at these people. And I just love playing the heel, which just shows he doesn't know what a heel really is, etc., etc., etc. Here's the problem. When you're doing well, when you're winning, all problems are solved. But when things dip, that's when you see sort of cracks in the foundation. And the loyalty of the average Southern Honor wrestler, which is paid for by a higher pay rate, more perceived attention, and being a part of a winning team, well, when the perception changes and you're no longer perceived as being part of the winning team, 2 out of those 3 things are gone. And what you're left with is a higher pay scale. And ask anybody who worked Rampage once they were on the decline. They had more no-shows. Paying $100 or more, mind you, per show. And they still had guys who more and more frequently would call in. Why? Because wrestling for the perceived self-aggrandized number one wasn't enough, when it just wasn't as much fucking fun to be there. And I don't know how to tell you, but the shows where people are actively learning, the shows that are based more around, and I'm not saying this is a fault of Gary Lamb's. I'm just pointing out the fact that the difference between a mercenary fucking show and a show where they've got dyed-in-the-wool true believers. Now, Gary Lamb believes the wrestlers of Southern Honor are dyed-in-the-wool true believers, which means he doesn't know what the fuck he's seeing, because it's not true. I talked to the fucking boys. It's not true. That's not the perception of that show. But he wants to be the best at everything. Unfortunately, you can't be. For Gary Lamb to continue to tout and knock everybody else down when they do one fucking show a month, I think it's gotten to the point where people are seeing like, oh, there's more of a value in many ways of shows that run more frequently. Specifically, shows that run once a week. That's where guys really develop. That's where you can see things really happening. Southern Honor, and you can already see this, and this is going to sound crazy. They're already becoming a victim of their success, where every show has to be a home run. Every show has to be booked like a virtual pay-per-view. And unfortunately, while that does create on the surface this appearance of being this really great show, how many more shows can they have like it? I mean, their return show after COVID was the Rumblejack, and it felt like we just had one. But it felt like they needed to do a Rumblejack or something that was gimmicked up to reintroduce us to everything. That's fine. But now we're having an anniversary show. I think the sooner that Gary can lose this mentality, the better. And that's this mentality of, well, that's how I am. That's how I promote. I'm the best promoter, so obviously what I do works. And all my shortcomings are in fact strengths, because that's who I am and I'm the best. Again, when the tide shifts, and they always do, it's the adaptable who win. And if you're always trying to pick a fight, what happens when people actually fight you? It's not a game that you want to get in, because promoters are not supposed to be faces or heels. They're just supposed to be promoters. And if they've got to pick one, babyface is a lot better than heel, because babyface will mean when you're in trouble, people will clamor to help you. When Anarchy was in trouble, perception-wise, people rushed to help them. And it mattered. And it made all the difference. You telling me Dan going in there as Booker didn't fucking turn that place around? Of fucking course it did. Are you telling me that fucking Todd contributing and fucking Hankins being there doesn't fucking help them immensely? Of course it does. And the problem with a mercenary show and somebody who loves wearing the black hat and twirling his proverbial mustache as much as Gary Lamb is, at some point Southern Honor will need help. In fact, I believe that they already do. But their weakness is they don't perceive that they do. They perceive that, oh, we're just so, oh, all these wrestlers sending us, trying to get on this show. And anytime you want to look at a promotion that's about to get kicked in the nuts, it's always the promotion that's saying, oh, we just get so many booking inquiries. Oh, all these wrestlers, they need to be more professional about how they can't. It's awfully short-sighted. That's what I'm saying. I'll say a couple other things. Should they be proud that they've made 2 years? Of course. Is it necessary for them can't they just purport who they are without having to say, well, I'm sure it's the greatest, craziest first 2 years any promotion's ever had. Again, when you're a guy like Gary Lamb who doesn't really know anything about anybody else or care to know, though he may on the surface say that he does. That's fucking ludicrous. I think if you looked at any successful promotion's first 2 years, I would put up the first 2 years PCW was running, 2010 and 11, from 9 till end of 9 till 11. Would I say it's crazier? I don't know who wrestled for PCW. Keep in mind that includes the first Sacred Ground, right? Samoa Joe and Colt Cabana and fucking, Awesome Kong. Have they had a fucking female star as big as Awesome Kong was in 2010 and 11? No. And then guys who would just pop in, and guys who continue to pop in and did the shows for free. Keep in mind, right? Certainly Southern Honor had that as well, but I ran more shows in a month than they did in a fucking year, right? So it's all apples and oranges. While maintaining a school, while truly developing fucking talent, right? Developing the guys that became the fucking foundation of Georgia wrestling, frankly. But that could go for anybody. Southern Fried could talk about their first 2 years, and it's fucking lunacy, right? You don't need, if you've got to tell it, then that means you haven't shown it. And frankly, if I was going to counterpunch that, I would say bragging about a 2-year anniversary when you didn't run shows for more than 6 months. So 25% of the time you weren't even fucking doing shows is nothing to brag about. Period. Is it their fault that COVID happened? No. But the promoters that he was decrying, yeah, but it doesn't count because they did outside shows. Oh, it certainly counts. Period. And the fact that Gary Lamb is the one who went back on his word, we will never run a show if we have to put concessions in place of any kind, blah, 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 blah. They most certainly did. This braggadocious fucking thing of making these fucking huge declarations and fucking constantly pounding their chest and this whole macho fucking vibe, it just can't play in a bigger way. Gary Lamb once inquired to me, what would it take for us to be bigger than Ring of Honor? And the fact is, it can't be. Because these notions of them, what happened to we're going to run shows here and we're going to run shows there, smartly, enough people, I think, were pulling him back from that. Because right now, it's the Gary Lamb show. It is Gary Lamb wrestling. No matter what the fuck they want to argue. Their crowd is entirely based on Gary Lamb running that promotion. That means he's doing a great job. But how can Southern Honor expand beyond that? How many, they can brag about getting 1,000. How many additional fans did they get off of that 1,000 that then became permanent fans? I think we know the answer. So let me just put it like this. The key to Gary Lamb and if you haven't figured out that most of this stuff can apply to other people, especially the parts that I'm going to say from here on in can't apply to everybody else, then you're a fool. But at least I know Gary Lamb will at least hear this out. But everybody should be listening to this part. In one phrase, how can Gary Lamb change in such a way that Southern Honor can become bigger and frankly outgrow him? Because right now he's bigger than the promotion. That's the main problem. He, as a person, has to exceed your expectations when you meet him and you have contact with him. Throughout this whole COVID thing, and I'm just going to throw it out there as a rhetorical question, is your opinion of Gary Lamb higher or lower than it was? Harsh. In short, Gary Lamb, if what he truly wants is for the perception of him to change in such a way that Southern Honor can grow, and he can grow, he needs to be more gracious, more knowledgeable, perhaps humbler, or at least not spend his energy fucking tilting against windmills that is pointless to tilt against. But more than that, and this is just a thing that will affect the overall vibe, Gary Lamb needs to be more secure. Because often when I see him write things or I see what he is posting, I don't get a braggadocious, confident man. I see somebody who's insecure and compensating. And until that perception is removed, Southern Honor can't be everything that it can be. Frankly, until I see evidence that more and more people are more secure instead of less, that's going to stop their personal growth and the growth of the promotions they care about, and the growth of Georgia wrestling as a whole. This has been Full Disclosure.